train and drive by. And it's just approaching 1:45. The ongoing row about plans to build the new Lower Thames crossing has erupted again. Over the weekend, Highways England pulled their current proposals for the crossing, which will connect Kent and Essex. Now, in a statement, it said it took the decision based on early feedback from planning officials. But that's not the end. It will be resubmitted, an amended plan, in the new year. Here's Councillor Jeremy Kite, the leader of Dartford Council, claiming that this is bad news.
Whether it's part of a technical delay or whether it's something more substantial is going to really wind us up because, quite honestly, we want to see this crossing delivered. It should have been started in the 90s and it should have been opened 15 years ago.
So, Jeremy Kite's view on any delay being a bad thing. Council bosses in Gravesham and Thurrock sent a joint statement saying any resubmission of plans needed to take into account the problems the crossing will cause to people living around there. Councillor John Burden is leader of Gravesham Borough Council.
Putting it in Gravesham doesn't work. I think it's in the wrong location. They should ideally look to put it alongside the A2, on the junction A2 of the M25, alongside the existing Dartford crossing.
Well, of course, we've been through all of this. There was a selection process for the location. So I wonder whether John Burden is in any way close to the mark or so far wide of it to think that that massive decision would be revisited. These people in Dartford want something to be done because they don't like the congestion in their area.
I just feel it's frustrating because we need something doing and we need it doing soon because the traffic around Dartford's appalling.
Traffic-wise, it's already a bit of a nightmare round here as it is, so whether it'll actually improve that or not.
Laura Blake is the chair of the Thames Crossing Action Group. They are opposed to the proposed Lower Thames crossing. Laura, it's good to have you with us. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Julia. Thanks for having me on.
No, pleasure. Do you have any insights into why this has been pulled? All we're hearing is early feedback from planning officials. What are you hearing?
Well, the information we've managed to locate through the Planning Inspectorate's website is actually that after they submitted the application, the Planning Inspectorate requested that they send some information which had actually Highways England had attempted to send in a redacted form, meaning they had blocked it out, which is quite surprising and shocking that they would think they could get away with that. They were also asked for additional information and some pointers as to where certain information could be found in the documentation that had been provided. So on more than one occasion, Highways England failed to provide the Planning Inspectorate evidently with adequate information. The Planning Inspectorate then gave the opinion to Highways England that they would be refusing the application, and instead Highways England chose to withdraw it rather than have it refused.
So they say they will resubmit an amended plan in the new year. So not a victory really for you, is it? It's just a postponement perhaps of the inevitable?
It's an example of the fact that we and many others, including local authorities, have been battling against Highways England not providing adequate information throughout the whole process. The fact that they've then tried to do this to the Planning Inspectorate and been pulled up on it is in a way a victory for us for the fact that they haven't been able to keep steamrolling forward regardless of what they think is acceptable information. The Planning Inspectorate have decided it's not adequate what they're trying to provide and they're sending them away to have a rework on that. So we'll see what they come back with. Either way, we feel that it is hopefully a time that maybe some people will give it some reconsideration on this, because to spend £8.2 billion on a project that's still going to leave the Dartford crossing over capacity just simply isn't good enough. And
let me just jump in, Laura. Do you think this really makes any material difference to your broader campaign?
Well, the Transport Action Network have their legal challenge against the Road Investment Strategy 2. That's being heard in the High Court next year, and that includes the LTC. There's also obviously the recent news on the A303 Stonehenge project, which Grant Shapps proceeding with, despite the fact that the Planning Inspectorate had recommended refusing it. And I would expect that there likely will be some legal action on that as well. On top of that, World Health Organisation standards on PM 2.5.
You might need to just quickly explain that to people, if you don't mind me jumping in there.
Of course, no, that's fine. So PM 2.5 is particulate matter 2.5. So that's very small particles of pollution. And in general, they're things like rubber coming off tyre, and very much smaller particles. And they are definitely a thing that will occur with electric vehicles as well as fossil fuels. So the fact that the argument is always moving over to electric vehicles, doesn't make it any difference at all when it comes to PM 2.5. In fact, because electric vehicles tend to be heavier because of the batteries, they weigh more, so braking causes more of these PM 2.5 particles.
Those are precisely the PM 2.5 particles that the people in Dartford would like to see less of, too.
Well, what I would say to the people in Dartford is to take a close look at Highways England's own data, because the Dartford crossing is still going to be over capacity. They seem to think and trust Highways England that this is actually going to be a magic wand that miraculously makes the Dartford crossing become a free-flowing crossing. And it's not. It's still going to be over capacity, and Highways England's own figures prove that. They deserve better, we deserve better, and Highways England aren't taking into account how traffic will migrate between the two crossings either, Julia. So when there are incidents, there aren't adequate connections, it will become even more chaos, congestion and pollution throughout all of the areas.
Lots of people will find it difficult to believe that having another crossing will make traffic worse or make the problem worse. I'm not sure a lot of people who live near the new crossing will perceive it to be much worse. But people will struggle with that as a concept, won't they? That where there is horrific congestion and pollution already, that providing an alternative makes things worse.
We're not denying that a new crossing is needed, but similar to the councillor that you had on earlier, we feel that there is a better solution, something that will work a lot better and take away the traffic, and that is what is known, and it's a Highways England option. It was called option A14, and that is from around junction 2 on the M25 through to between 30 and 29 on the north side of the river on the M25. It would finally complete the M25 as a true motorway orbital, and it bypasses all those problem areas. You put traffic lights on anywhere on the M25 and turn them red every 15 to 20 minutes, and you'll have similar problems as you do down in Dartford.
Final thought about what comes in the new year. Despite your arguments about a better location, this amended plan will still be Gravesend, won't it?
I would be completely shocked if Highways England moved away from the design, because it is the preferred route that was chosen by Chris Grayling back in 2017. I would expect that they are working on it, but the very fact that they're taking the time to go away shows that we may actually finally get some adequate information out of them, and it means that the planning inspectorate actually are paying attention and are going to get the information that we and local authorities who have serious concerns on this have been pushing to get for so long now.
Laura, it's really good of you to talk to us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Anytime. Take care.
Laura Blake is the chair of the Thames Crossing Action Group, as you've heard, in no uncertain terms, opposed to this location, this rendition of the Lower Thames Crossing, which now is been pulled back from the planning stage after early feedback, we're told, from planning officials, resubmitted. The plan is an amended plan resubmitted in the new year. We'll keep across that one for you, I promise. 12:52, and this is BBC Radio Kent.